Well, welcome everybody. Richard, Jan, personally name the participants today. Welcome to our Zone 34 monthly Foundation District Leaders session. I am not Jeanette Loftus, who unfortunately is unable to be with us due to personal reasons, but I am standing in for her. My name is David Kirkcaldy, and I am the Assistant Rotary Regional Foundation Coordinator for Zone 34. For tonight's session, we're going to feature live and direct from Chicago, Sarah Swanskowski from the Rotary Foundation. Tonight's webinar is going to focus on Rotary DDF rollover policy, which allows our districts to carry forward unused funds and in turn support future priorities rather than rushing to spend. Used strategically, this rollover enables larger multi-year projects, maximizing impact while ensuring strong stewardship of Rotary Foundation resources. I'd ask you to go ahead and put any questions that you might have into the chat box during the discussion. And at the end of Sarah's presentation and discussion, we can have a quick Q&A to cover any additional points that you want clarity on. We also have a special guest with us this evening, Rotary International Zones 33, 34 Director-elect Marshall Butler. Welcome, Marshall.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Pinch hitting for our director, Patrick, who is also unable to join us today. At this point, we'll just get started right in with it, and we'll turn it over to Sarah. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, David, and thank you to everyone for having me at your Foundation Leaders meeting today. I am excited to chat a little bit about DDF and to talk a little bit about where your zone stands as far as the rollover policy goes, and what sort of strategies and things have been working or can you use in the future to continue the amazing spending that your district or that the districts in your zone have been doing. So as a quick reminder, I know that this is something that we have been putting a real big effort into getting out into the Rotary world and reminding everyone about the policy. So the DDF rollover policy says that DDF that reaches 5 years old will need to be spent or reallocated by 30 June, the year that the DDF turns 5. So that means the first time this will happen is this 30 June 2026. Any funds left over in the 2020-2021 balance for your district will need to be spent or reallocated by 30 June 2026. So what should your district be doing from now until 30 June? Believe it or not, 30 June is going to creep up on us very, very quickly. So what can you be doing right now? One, and most importantly, is to be reviewing the balances on the available DDF report. This report is your way of seeing what's being spent and out of which bucket. So at the bottom of that report, there is balances that tick down as your DDF is being spent. So that balance that's in the 2020-2021 bucket, as I call them, will need to be fully spent by 30 June 2026. If it's not, what happens? So your district can reallocate those funds to a Rotary Foundation fund, such as Polio Plus, Peace Centers, the Endowment, Disaster Response, or World Fund. Those are all options, and the districts can also spend that money right now and transfer to those funds. Typically, DDF is spent using the current year balance first, and then the oldest available rollover. Right now, the oldest rollover would be 2020-2021. And that's the consumption rule that grants will always follow. So grants are always spent out of the current year first, and then the oldest available rollover year. However, through 30 June 2026, the districts have the option to make a DDF transfer out of the 2020-2021 balance. So if your district has not done the 20% to Polio Plus, you can
Mm.
do that amount. You could do that transfer out of the 2021 balance and utilize and help your district reach that goal as well. Other than that, what we are also encouraging is to submit complete grant applications by March 1st. So, what does this mean? There is no specific deadline for grants, but we are encouraging districts who want grants to be approved prior to 30 June, that they put in the work to fully complete a grant application and, make sure all of the components are full and really thought out and, have all of the necessary requirements for the grant process in them at the beginning so that when they are submitted, that they have the best chance of being approved by 30 June 2026. We anticipate that there may be a large volume of grants being submitted as we get closer to the end of this year due to the amount of money that is left over in the 2020-2021 balance. And we anticipate that districts are going to try to, do more grants in order to spend that money, which we totally understand, but we want everyone to be aware that just submitting the application does not guarantee approval by 30 June.
Mm.
And then finally, what else can you do is, transfer the 2020-2021 funds to Rotary Foundation funds now. If you know what your district would like to do with the money, you can do that now. You don't have to wait until the end of the year. So I was saying briefly to the leaders of this call before everyone hopped on that Zone 34 has done really, really well with spending their DDF. So I just want to applaud you all for your hard work and dedication and working through that challenge. So there are only 4 districts in the zone that have a current balance in the 2020-2021 bucket. So that means all of the other districts in the zone have spent their 2020-2021 balance, and they don't have to worry about where those funds will be allocated at the end of the year. Looking forward to next year, because each year thereafter, there will always be a year that reaches 5 years old. So next year, the 2020-2022 balance will reach 5 years old on 30 June 2027. There are only 6 districts that have a balance in that bucket. So there's a larger amount of money in that bucket, but there's still time to utilize those funds. So that is something that you're going to be wanting to look at your district's report to plan for next year to see how much money you're going to get as 2027 DDF and what your district has in the 2021-2022 balance, because those two amounts are going to be what you want to plan to spend in the 2027 year. And like I just said, each year a rollover balance will reach 5 years old. And so, how can your district plan strategically for this? Again, review the DDF balances often. There are 2 reports that are at your disposal for you for your planning purposes. The first one I've already mentioned is the available DDF report. That's going to be the report to use in the current year. It does not work for future years. So you can only pull it for the current year. The one that you can use for future year planning is the share contribution detail report. That report you can pull for up to 3 years in the future, because it shows you the contributions that were made 3 years prior per the annual fund cycle. This way you can see how much DDF you're anticipated to get for the 2027 year, for the 2028 year, and for the 2029 year. That way you can look and see how much money that your district is looking for. You can take about 50% of that to determine how much you can use for district grants. And the remainder is what you can spend on global grants or DDF transfers. So a combination of those two reports is definitely what's going to support your planning process for future years. And then finally, prepare grant applications early in the year. I know that's easier said than done, but as much as possible, use the resources that you have at your disposal. Have grants reviewed by, maybe other districts in your zone that might, have had a really good grant making process that they can offer some feedback on, perhaps, to make sure that the grant is fully thought through before submitting to the foundation, and also working with your regional grants officer at the foundation as well. And then finally, I just wanted to take time for some questions. I know that there might be many questions, and I'd be happy to review any of the suggestions or data that I've gone through in the presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'll turn it over to Hamza to throw out any questions. I didn't see any come up in the chat, but Hamza, you have some others? Not sure if you're talking there, but you're
Hi.
muted still.
I have a
There you go.
question
Ah,
for Sarah.
hello.
Yeah, this is Hip Tang. I'm the DRFC for 6950. Sarah, you're talking about the report that we can look into the next 3 years. Does that include the endowment earning?
It does not include endowment earnings because the endowment earnings are not decided upon until later on in the year prior to the upcoming Rotary year. Sorry, that's a mouthful. So we don't have the earnings yet for next year, if that makes sense. So there's no report that you can pull to tell you exactly how much your endowment earnings will be. Unfortunately, the endowment earnings are not known until they're loaded onto the available DDF report in July.
In
What
July.
we do suggest is typically the spending rate remains pretty steady. At least it has recently, and that's due to kind of market conditions and the economy of that the trustees are looking at when they're deciding on that spending rate. So you can take a look at what your district has received in the past and use a best educated guess on how much you can anticipate from the endowment going forward.
Okay.
So if your district got about $5,000 last year, you can potentially plan for about $5,000 in the upcoming year.
Thank you. Just another question on that matter also. So let's say if our district for the past 3 years been getting between $24,000 and $25,000 earning from the endowment fund, we can safely assume that, for the next 3 years, that's going to be at the same level. Correct, right? That's what you just said.
It's hard to say safely assume just because there's so much, there could be fluctuation in the market.
Right.
It has been typically about the same for the last, I think at least 5 years since I've only been in this role for about 4 years, but it's been about the same for the past 4 years. So that's just typically what we are suggesting at this point. If that changes because of any sort of, market fluctuations, we'll let you all know. But at this point, I think it's safe to assume, yes.
Yes, thank you. So this year, though, there's an exception. I was told that the Board of Trustees has allowed us to spend the 2020-21 first, and that I assume ending on June 30th of 2026.
That's correct. So from now until 30 June 2026, the districts can use the 2020-2021 balance on DDF transfers. That's the exception.
Okay, so we can we do the 20% polio that we normally committed to? Can we do that using that money for the following year? In other words, for RI 2026, 2027. Can we transfer that now?
No, you can't
Okay.
transfer that 20% until 2027.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, I have posted a couple of questions if our participants do not have some. The first one, how can we guarantee that grants will spend the oldest DDF? Sometimes there is a confusion.
Yes. So, like I was saying earlier, grant spending is always following grant spending always follows our consumption rule of spending the current year balance first and then spending the oldest rollover year. So if you have grants in the system that have been submitted but not approved, you want to take a look at the amount of those grants. If that amount is not going to fully spend the 2025-2026 balance, you won't be able to dip into the 2020-2021 balance, even if all of those are approved. Now, there's no guarantee that all of those grants in the pipeline get approved either, right?
Yeah.
So the best way to make sure that you can spend the 2020-2021 balance in the way that you're wishing to is to keep an eye on the grants that are in process. Make sure that if there's requests from grant officers that you're getting back to them as soon as possible with the information that they need. And then also, having a backup plan. If those grants don't get approved and don't spend the 2020-2021 balance, now what? Where would you want it allocated if those grants don't get approved? And something I forgot to mention while I was going through my presentation is that starting in March, all of the districts worldwide will be getting a form that says if there is any balance left over in the 2020-2021 balance, our district wants it to go here. And the district will be able to decide on which Rotary fund the remaining balance will go to. You do not need to know how much balance is left over because we know that there will be, different sorts of things happening throughout the year, all the way up to 30 June, right? So it's just a general form to say if there is a balance, we would like 60% to go to polio and 40% to go to the Rotary Peace Centers. The district gets to decide, but that's just an example. Should we not receive that form by 30 June, then any balance left over will go to the World Fund.
When do you expect that form to be sent to all the?
Yeah, starting in mid-March.
Mid-March. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
On the old DDF, if I understood you correctly, say, for example, we have certain number of global grants in the pipeline. They have been submitted but still not been approved. Now we pretty much spent our DDF, but there is some other new application comes in. So would it be then prudent to go ahead and submit the new application using the 2020-21 DDF and complete it by March 31, 2026?
So we're suggesting that grant applications be submitted by March 1st for the best chance.
Okay, March 1st, yeah.
For the best chance of being approved by 30 June. However, So you're asking like if there's a new grant application that comes
Yeah, so
in like today.
using your example for this year, let's say our districts have allocated most of their DDF that are going to be submitted by March 30th, March 1st. Now, always we get new requests from districts for, extra DDF. Do we have DDF? Could we allocate that? In other words, when you look at our numbers, right, it's kind of psychologically we'll be overspending, right? The money we
Right.
didn't have, donate that to another global grant from another district, either in our zone or somewhere else. If they guarantee us to us that it will be, well, March 1 is very soon, in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You see what I'm saying? Because, for example, at the zone level, I see 3 or 4 requests from various clubs, seeking DDF, but will be very hesitant to tell the districts, to spend the money they do not see in the current budget year. So that's kind of a confusion I wanted to address,
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding, so I'm going to talk through it, and if I'm mistaken in my understanding, please stop me. But so you're saying like if a application comes in that a district within your zone wants to help another district out for, how can they use their DDF for the other district's grant? Is that the
2020,
question?
right? Yeah.
Okay, so there's no way to identify that you want to use 2020, 2021 DDF on a grant because of the grant spending
Yeah.
cycle, right? So if they're being if District A is, committing $5,000 to District B's grant, if District A has not fully spent their current year balance, there's no way for them to say to District B, yes, we'll give you $5,000, but we want it to come out of 2020, 2021. Does that make sense? They still
Yeah.
would
Thank
have
you.
to
Thank you.
spend.
Yeah. Making that clarification, and
Yeah.
thank you. If there are no other questions, I have one more.
I see a hand.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Thank you. Question, let's say if by June 20th and we still have $20,000 left in the 2021 DDF, what's the process of allocating it to an endowment fund so we can earn some earning?
Yeah, so it's the same process. There's you can use the DDF transfer form, either the current form online, or the new form that's coming out in March. And you can select the endowment as an option. We will, if your district does not have a DDF endowment fund, we will create one for you. Your district can transfer any amount into that DDF fund, and continue to add DDF to it in the future. It only accepts DDF, does not accept cash. But once it, is established and starts generating earnings, your district, if you choose share, your district will receive earnings from that fund.
Okay, so our district currently have 11 endowment fund that we draw in some earnings from. Can I specify which one I wanted to go to?
We'll have to look at it I can
Okay.
look at it with you. It'll depend on how the funds were set up because for accounting purposes, we have to keep DDF funds separate from cash funds because there's a lot of IRS crazy accounting rules that are above my head, but that's the reason that there's a difference between the two, but it will still generate funds for the district, yes.
Okay, I take up that offer. Can I send you an email then and set up a time where we can look at the 11 endowment fund that we have together?
Yes, please. And you can email me at share@rotary.org.
Thank you.
Of course. And that goes for anyone. You can reach me at share@rotary.org with questions or concerns or anything related to DDF.
Any other questions?
Sarah, you can go ahead and turn off your screen share now, I think. There we go.
So
Thank you so much. Sorry, you had another question come up?
Yeah, I was going to ask how much DDF, excuse me, do we need to allocate in the upcoming years, the past DDF?
As a whole, Rotary worldwide, or just
No,
your
just
zone?
for our own zone and our own districts.
I don't have the exact number for all of the years, but I know for next year there is in the 2021-2022 bucket, there's about 148,000 that needs to be allocated, and in the current 2020-2021 balance, there's only about 74,000 left to be allocated.
So thank you. So one of the offers is if any one of the DRFCs need any help with allocations, please, I'm here to help, and I'll work with you and Sarah. Just wanted to offer I'm volunteering.
Okay, and Hamza, I'm not sure if you've seen on the chat, there was one other question. Can clubs be required to give to the foundation to participate in grants?
Right, yeah, this new one came, yes. This is from Ann Cordero from 6920. Can clubs be required to give to the foundation to participate in grants?
So that's not a foundation rule. So you don't have to enforce that. I know that there are districts around the world that do have specific rules around giving to the foundation to be able to participate in grants, but that is at the district level and not at the foundation level.
Anything further on that, Marshall, to add some color to that particular point?
It's district discretion. So,
okay.
Yeah, there are some districts in Georgia, like 6900. They use contribution to TRF, as a carrot to encourage clubs.
And if I may, just offering some background to that, since there is a change in the rollover funds, and now rollover funds can only carry forward for 5 years, it might be time for districts to take a look at their process and see if that still makes sense. There could be, clubs that are really, really good at, presenting grants, and there could be clubs that are really, really good at fundraising, and playing off of the strengths of one another could be really helpful. If one's really good at fundraising and another one's really good at spending the money, how do we make that work? So I'd like for districts to keep that in mind when thinking about these new rules as some people call them, that because there is a time limit to spend this money, it might be worth taking a look at the district procedures and what makes most sense for each district.
Superb.
Yes, mentioning District 6900 and planning my budget, I'm told we have no rollover for me. So it's been spent.
Yeah.
So they're good at allocating and getting it out, understanding the rules. Great. So thank you.
Carrot works.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for your presentation. And if you'll be able to stick around, we'd love to have you on the call until you need to leave. But with that, we would turn over to the illustrious man of the moment, Zones 33 and 34 Director-elect Marshall Butler, fresh off of IA and realizing through the meetings there all that he has gotten himself into. So welcome, Marshall. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Well, I used thank you. And I used the example today that the snowball has started at the top of the mountain and it's getting bigger and getting faster. And I'm just trying to keep up. So but it's great. It's such an honor to represent our zones on the International Assembly or the International Board. And just, yeah, thank you, Sarah, again, for this great presentation. There's so much detail and so much, so much that you need to know about the foundation in order to properly use it correctly. They should rename that. Instead of share@rotary.org, it should be Shara@rotary.org. That'd be a good one for you, right?
Mhm.
So, but yeah, thank you for spending the time with us tonight to go through all of this. And thank you to the Zone 34 Foundation team for putting things like this together. Because we certainly want to make sure that we are good stewards of the money that's been entrusted with us. And as I hear, 4 districts still have $70,000 to determine how they want to use it, the best interest of their district. It's very important that, with March 1st coming up very quickly, to get those grants in, to figure that out. Or to, it seems like there's a lot of alternatives, lots of ways that it can be done, whether it's a rollover to a DDF endowed fund, or to polio, which I am a big fan of course, or peace, or the World Fund. So thank you for all that. And thank you for the participants tonight for participating and making sure that you understand how to really use the foundation to the best of its ability as you do good in your communities and around the world. So I really appreciate that. With that, as we think about these new processes, I think, that's always been a kind of a hallmark as my Rotary journey is always, when you're in a job, think about the job that you're in and think about how to make it a little bit better, leave it better than you found it. And I can't think of anything better than to look at your internal processes and see if they still, is it the way that we've always done it, or is there a way that we can do a little bit better? Maybe it's to get some of those clubs that have always just been grant submitters and not fundraisers, maybe, figure out a way to get them more involved in the fundraising process. So with that, just again, want to say thank you to you all for joining tonight, and thank you for what you do for Rotary. I appreciate your leadership.
Thank you, Marshall. We are pretty much going to be wrapping up, but before I do so, I would just throw it out if there are any general questions you have on Foundation for any of the folks that are on the call, or if everyone is grateful for an earlier evening than normal on one of these calls. I will take that as keep it moving, David. Well, thank you again, Sarah, for the excellent ideas that you shared on this topic of increasing the impact of using our rollover DDF. It's something a lot of folks don't think about, but as you say, that money is there, and if it behooves our districts to make some positive decisions on how to direct that or find ways to use it in these last few months before it does that rollover. Everybody on the call and those that end up listening on the recording that gets sent out after, just remember that there are tons of resources about the Rotary Foundation, both online and with individuals in your districts, our zones, and Rotary. And I would encourage you, the folks that are on this call, your neighboring districts that perhaps you don't see represented here, just reach out to them tomorrow and just double check everything's okay. Did they not see the note about this meeting? I'm pretty sure that it's been publicized well. But these meetings are a once a month opportunity to touch base on important topics within our foundation, which is the lifeblood of Rotary, and for you to establish communications and friendships and partnerships with others in our zone to assist each other. I just think about the example of spending of DDF and district grants in general. There are some districts who are absolutely intensely great at grant writing, at DDF application and distribution and monitoring procedures. And then there are districts that are not so great at that. Finding out through our conversations which districts are thought leaders or really sort of best in class in certain areas of Foundation is really useful. And I'd encourage you to reach out to your friends in other Rotary districts that you're not seeing on these calls, to reach out to them and encourage them to join us. I would, and believe Sean Patty is being super helpful for us today out of District 7030. Thank you, Sean, for your pinch hitting here and getting this recording out to JLO to circulate shortly. I would also ask you to mark your calendars for our next Zone 34 Foundation District Leaders meeting, which will be on March the 5th at 6 p.m. Next month, we're going to hear from our End Polio Now team. So that's exciting, and we look forward to seeing a great audience there. Also coming up, We've got our Zone 34 Leadership Learning Seminar, that's happening in Jacksonville, March 28th to 29th. Last year when we did that, we found that having I'm not sure who, I think Jan was probably there. Not sure who else was there for the foundation side of things, but we found that 2.5 hour block of time to talk foundation was just really not enough time to do all but the highest level speed reading class or time together. So we have added additional time. So we've expanded the foundation chair sessions only, and those are going to be starting on Friday, March the 27th at 1:30 p.m. And then they will continue on as before on the Saturday morning before we all come together for lunch at noon. I hope that gives a bit more time for us to get into some of the meat of the matter. There's certainly a ton of interesting topics to delve into, and we found that 2.5 hours just wasn't enough time to really get in there. Early discount ends. The early bird discount is ending on February the 15th. So please register. Again, reach out to friends in other districts, have them make sure they register in time and reserve your hotel room as soon as possible. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sean, for your assistance on the technical side and the recordings. Sarah, for taking time out of your day in beautiful downtown Chicago to join us out here in the nice, warm southern United States or the Caribbean. But it's been a pleasure hearing from you about DDF, and thank you for all the assistance you give to our districts. Marshall, thank you also for pinch hitting for Patrick tonight. It's been great having you on. And with that, we'll close the call, and we thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you on March the 5th.